The man they called Father Marcus hadn't worn his collar in 17 years, but everyone in Ashford County still knew what he was, or rather, what he'd been: a priest, a counselor, a man who'd spent 3 decades listening to the confessions of dying souls in maximum security prisons across the American South. They said he'd heard things that would break most men, things that made him walk away from God entirely. But on the night of October 13th, driving home along Route 9 through the pine forests of eastern North Carolina, Marcus saw something that would test whatever faith he had left. A small figure collapsed on the shoulder of the road. A child. Marcus slammed the brakes, gravel spraying beneath his tires. His headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating a boy, maybe 7 or 8 years old, wearing pajamas covered in cartoon dinosaurs. The child's face was pale, lips blue, eyes half open and glazed. Blood trickled from his nose. Marcus was out of the car before he could think. His knees hit the asphalt as he cradled the boy's head. The child was cold, too cold. Marcus pressed 2 fingers to the boy's neck, searching for a pulse. There, faint, irregular, dying. "Hold on," Marcus whispered, reaching for his phone. His hands shook as he dialed 911. "Hold on, son," the operator's voice crackled through. "911, what's your emergency?" "There's a child on Route 9, mile marker 42. He's unconscious, barely breathing. I need an ambulance now." A pause, then, "Can you describe the child?" "What?" "He's maybe 8, brown hair, wearing dinosaur pajamas. He's dying. Send someone." Another pause, longer this time. Marcus could hear muffled voices in the background, urgent whispers. When the operator returned, her voice had changed. Careful, measured. "Sir, what is your name?" "Marcus Holt." "Why does that matter?" "This kid needs help." "Mr. Holt, please listen carefully. I need you to step away from the child." Marcus froze. "What did you say?" "Do not touch the child. Do not attempt to provide aid. Officers are en route to your location. Please return to your vehicle and wait." "Are you insane? He's dying." "Mr. Holt," the operator's voice dropped. "If you value your life, step away from that child right now." The line went dead. Marcus stared at his phone, his mind reeling. What the hell was happening? He looked down at the boy in his arms. The child's eyes had closed completely now. His breathing had become shallow, barely visible. Then Marcus saw it. On the inside of the boy's wrist, partially hidden by his sleeve. A tattoo. No, not a tattoo. A brand. 3 letters burned into the pale skin. DTK. Marcus had seen those letters before. Years ago. In a prison in Alabama. On the wrist of a man who'd confessed to Marcus that he'd been part of something called the Devonshire Trade. A network. A market. Marcus had reported it immediately, triggering an investigation that had consumed the FBI for months, eventually leading nowhere. The man who'd confessed had been found dead in his cell 3 days later. Suicide, they'd said. But Marcus remembered the man's final words to him. "They mark the merchandise, Father, so they always know who belongs to them." Headlights appeared in the distance, not an ambulance. 3 police cruisers, moving fast. Marcus made a decision. He scooped the boy into his arms and ran to his truck. The child weighed almost nothing, a fragile bundle of bones and cold skin. Marcus laid him across the back seat, grabbed an emergency blanket from behind the passenger seat, and wrapped it around the boy's body. The cruisers were closer now, maybe a 1/4 mile away. Marcus jumped into the driver's seat and gunned the engine. His truck fishtailed on the gravel before finding traction. In his rearview mirror, he saw the police cars skid to a stop where he'd been kneeling moments before. His phone rang. He ignored it. It rang again and again. "Come on, kid," Marcus muttered, taking a sharp turn onto a side road. "Stay with me." He knew these backwoods roads. He'd driven them for years, visiting remote churches and isolated families. He knew every turnoff, every logging trail, every place where cell service dropped to nothing. He needed somewhere safe, somewhere off the grid. 20 minutes later, Marcus pulled into an overgrown driveway leading to an abandoned hunting cabin he'd discovered years ago. He killed the lights and engine, listening. Silence. No sirens. No helicopters. He climbed into the back seat. The boy's breathing had stabilized, slightly. Marcus checked his pulse again. Stronger. Not by much, but stronger. In the dim moonlight filtering through the windows, Marcus examined the child more carefully. Bruises on his arms, old scars on his legs, fingernails dirty and ragged, like he'd been digging, and that brand, DTK, burned so deep it would never fade. Marcus's hands clenched into fists. He knew what this meant. He knew what had been done to this child, what was probably still being done to others. The boy's eyes opened, brown eyes, unfocused and afraid. "Hey," Marcus said softly, "it's okay. You're safe now." The boy stared at him. His lips moved, forming words without sound. Marcus leaned closer. "What is it? What are you trying to say?" The boy's whisper was barely audible. "He said you'd come." Marcus felt ice slide down his spine. "Who said? Who told you that?" "The man in the white room. He said a Templar would find me. He said to tell you." The boy's eyes began to close again. "Tell you it's not over. The 7 doors are still open." "What doors? What are you talking about?" But the boy had slipped back into unconsciousness. Marcus sat in the darkness, his mind racing. A Templar. The boy had used that word specifically. Only one person had ever called Marcus that. Father Dominic, his mentor at the seminary, who'd trained Marcus in an obscure tradition within the church, a kind of spiritual warfare against genuine evil. Dominic had called it the work of Templars, guardians who stood between innocence and the abyss. Dominic had died 8 years ago, or so Marcus had been told. Marcus pulled out his phone. No service, as expected. But he didn't need service. He opened his photos, scrolling back through years of images until he found what he was looking for. A picture he'd taken of a letter Dominic had sent him, months before his supposed death. The letter contained a single verse: "When the doors open, the shepherds must become wolves." And beneath it, 7 sets of coordinates. Marcus had never understood what it meant. He'd assumed it was the rambling of an old man losing his grip on reality. But now, staring at those coordinates in the darkness, with a branded child breathing softly in his back seat, Marcus understood. Dominic had known. Somehow, he'd known this was coming. The boy stirred, murmuring in his sleep. "The doors, the white room, they're waiting." Marcus made another decision. He started the truck. By dawn, he'd need to be far from North Carolina. He'd need to find someone he could trust, someone with resources and connections. He'd need to figure out what those coordinates meant, what the 7 doors were, and who had branded this child. But more than anything, Marcus needed to understand one terrible truth that was crystallizing in his mind. The police hadn't told him to walk away because they didn't care about the boy. They'd told him to walk away because they already knew who the boy was. They knew what he represented. They knew what helping him would cost. And they'd been willing to let him die on that road rather than face what saving him would unleash. As Marcus drove through the pre-dawn darkness, the boy's branded wrist visible in the rearview mirror, he thought about Father Dominic's final words to him, spoken at their last meeting before the old priest had vanished. "Marcus," Dominic had said, gripping his hand with surprising strength, "there will come a night when you have to choose between your safety and your soul. When that night comes, remember, some children are marked not because they belong to evil, but because they're meant to destroy it. The question is whether anyone will be brave enough to help them do it." Marcus looked at the boy in his mirror, 7 years old, marked like livestock, already bearing the weight of horrors no child should ever know. "I guess we're about to find out," Marcus whispered to the empty road ahead. Behind them, somewhere in the dark, phones were ringing. Decisions were being made, and 7 doors, whatever they were, remained open. The last Templar had picked up his sword again, and this time he wasn't walking away.